Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah, and we will start a new book, a new Sefer, which is the book of Wayikra or Leviticus. In this Torah portion, we will discuss something that we are been thinking for so long, and that is the law. Usually in the Christian realm, law is always a negative thing, but rather we are going to talk about what Shaul Paul talks about the law. And what does it mean when he talks about the law? And we will delve into that so we can clarify a lot of things, because there's so much confusion about the law. Now, before we start, please subscribe if you have not subscribed so you can get the latest production. We have so much. We have a lot of music, and if you don't know where to find it, you can actually look underneath and look for it. And usually there are in so many platforms. One of them, it's in the Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music. They are everywhere. So let's start off. Parashat Wayikra starts with the brand new Sefer book of Leviticus, and let's find out what the scripture says. This is number 24 on the Torah portions, chapter 1, verse 1, all the way to 5, verse 26. Yahweh Wayikra, he called Moshe and spoke with him from the Mishkan, or the tent of the testimony, and said, "Speak to the sons of Israel, said to them, when any of you bring an offering to Yahweh, you may bring your animal offering from the flock or from the herd." This was a direct command from Yahweh to Moshe to do this, and the reason why he said that is because of the sin of the golden calf. That's one of the main reasons why the book of Leviticus came about. Prior to that, Yahweh has never said anything about that, but only gave a foreshadow of the things to come. How do we know that? Because if you go to chapter 15 of Bereshit or Genesis, Yahweh gives certain characteristics and certain animals to be slaughtered. And he gives a list of each one of them. Chapter 15 of Genesis speaks about it. It was a foreshadow of the things to come. Now, let's go a little bit forward, and we will talk about two lines of service. The first one is the line of Levi, or the tribe of Levi, versus Melchizedek. Melchizedek happens to be the other line of service. Now, one of these is the one that surpasses the other. The question that we always have had is, what is the relationship between this and the other? Or what is the difference between one and another? And we will start off first by the tribe of Levi. The kahunat, the priesthood of Levi, starts off by Yahweh commanding the sons of Levi to do their service. Why? Because if you go chapter 19, 20, 21, 23, and keep going of the book of Exodus, Yahweh said to the whole entire nation of Israel that they were going to be priests and kings of the nation of Israel. But what happened in chapter 20, and if you continue, our fathers sinned with the golden calf. That priesthood was taken away from them and was given to the tribe of Levi. That's how it came to be, the service of Yahweh. Now, let's find out, and please take notes on all this, because this is a very important topic that you don't want to miss or miss any notes. Hebrews chapter 7 verse 11, "Therefore, if I have been possible to reach the goal through the Kohanim, the service, priesthood system derived from Levi, since in the relationship to this people received the Torah." Now, the service of the tribal Levi doing the service of the priesthood came to be and given to them many many things to be done, many duties to be done. One of them is to do the sacrifice. Others, when he talks about Torah, Torah is basically instruction. I know it's translated to English as law, but instruction is the right definition. Let's go in the book of Deuteronomy or Devarim 17 verse 9, talking about the tribe of Levi, and they will appear before the Kohanim, talking about the people who are Levites, and the judge in the office. At that time, they will seek their opinion and they will render a verdict for you. This is besides doing the sacrifices, besides doing other things, one of them will be to be a judge. Another, let's jump into another, chapter 33, verse 10, they will teach your mispato, which is your ordinances to Yaakov, which is Israel, and your instruction, your Torah to Israel. See, one of the duties of the tribe of Levi, it wasn't just a priest. It was also a teacher. It was also a judge. A lot of things that they had to do to the entire nation of Israel, and also to be a physician as well. When somebody was sick, what is it that they needed to do? They needed to present themselves to the Kohen, to the high priest. He was going to do the duty of a physician to make sure that person was cured. Now, let's continue with the next one. Galatians chapter 3, verse 17. And this I say, the Torah, officially created 430 years later, does not intend to abolish the covenant previously ratified by Abraham, and thus invalidate the promise given. In other words, the 430 years later, after Abraham has received the promise that was given to him and his seed. Now, let me pause here for a minute and let me ask you this question. Did Abraham knew the Torah? Did Abraham knew the instruction of the Almighty? And the answer is absolutely yes. Abraham learned this from Shem, Heber, and Shem happens to have a special title, and the title was Melchizedek. Shem was Melchizedek. Now, Melchizedek is not a person, it's a title. It was a title that was given to and passed on from generation to generation. But at that time, in the time of Abraham, who was still alive previously, was Shem. Shem, he was the one who was in charge at that time to give these instructions, the line to serve Yahweh, because, and I will show you in a minute what are the attributes of Melchizedek. Let's continue. The 430 years that happened later, it was because of a book that came to be, and that was the book of Leviticus, the book of the sacrifices, the Torah of the book, the Torah of sacrifices. Chapter 3, verse 19. So what was the Torah given for? It was added to know the transgressions unto the coming of the seed. See that? It was added, which Torah? The Torah of sacrifices. So when you see Shaul speaking about the law, quote unquote, it's not speaking about the whole entire 613 laws or instructions, but rather it's talking about the sacrifices. The sacrifices is literally speaking here because it was literally pointing to something in the future, and that future was Mashiach. Let's go back. So what was the Torah given for? It was added to know the transgressions. Why? And let me stop here for a moment. What was the reason why the person had it to come down to the temple and give an offering. See, that offering happens to be the replacement of that person. If there was no offering, guess who was going to pay it? That person. That person was going to pay for his life. But Yahweh said, let the person bring a sacrifice, because that sacrifice is going to take his place. You see that? His place, that animal, that lamb, that ram is going to take the place of that person. So therefore, I need that to be redeemed. Now, let's continue. Chapter 3, verse 24. So the Torah has become our instructor. You see that? To lead us to Mashiach. So what Torah are we talking about? It was the Torah of the Levitical Torah, the Levitical law. The Levitical law happens to be the one that was going to be the one given to Moshe to give to the sons of Levites, to be the one who was going to bring about the sacrifices and continue to do it through generations. But that was just a period of time. From this point to this point, it was not continue to be forever and ever and ever. It was just a period of time. And that period of time ended when Mashiach came. Let's go back here. The word instructor happens to be a tutor, somebody who's teaching you something because it's preparing you for something that is coming up. The same thing with the Levitical law. That was going to teach something that was coming in the future, and that was Mashiach. You see that? Now, these sacrifices that had to come every single day and had to be bring to the temple was getting watered down. So you understand what I'm saying. Little by little was getting watered down, little by little, and diminishing the actual meaning of it. Let me explain you why. When Yahweh said that the animal, the ram, the lamb, the cow, had to be in a certain standard, that standard had to be in a perfect mabul. That standard had to be perfect, could not have any rush, could not have any impediment, had to be perfect in every single way. Because that perfection that animal had was a reflection of that person. But what happened later, little by little, they start bringing anything that they wanted to. They start bringing animals that were not perfect. And Yahweh he already knew, of course, because he's the creator. He already knew that the people were not bringing perfect sacrifices. You can read it in all the books of the prophets. One of them, and I was just going to quote right away, chapter 1 of the book of Isaiah says very clear, where Yahweh says himself that he is tired of the sacrifices. He's tired of these traditions of men. He's tired of these imperfections of sacrifices, because what they were bringing, they just wanted to get it over with, get it over out of the deal, and just go home without really following to the letter what the Torah speaks about the sacrifices. So it was literally diminishing little by little, watered down little by little, to the point that the first century, when Mashiach got really, really upset, remember he did it more than one time though, that he went into the vendors in the house of Yahweh. He started demolishing and just disrupting all the businesses they're making, because they were not selling something that it was worth to bring to the temple, but it was just all about making money. That's what happened in the first century. Now let's continue. These sacrifices once again, something that the Creator asked for it was losing the essence. So you know what I'm saying. These sacrifices no longer were valid. And Yahweh knew about it. The prophets that were speaking to the people, to the leaders, were aware what this sacrifice meant, and they didn't mean anything whatsoever. Chapter 4, verse 2, but it is under guardians and managers until the specific time set by the Father. See, the time, once again, was just a frame time that Yahweh said, I'm going to bring this about. I'm going to teach these people something that is coming in the future. I'm going to instruct in them the Levitical law, the Levitical sacrifices, to instruct in them that something that is going to come in the very future, and that was going to be Mashiach. See, the attributes of the tribe of Levites is only just one, which is the Kohen, which is just a priest. But I'm going to show you next, the attributes of Melchizedek is more than one. But before that, the Levitical kehunat, or priesthood, it was the main purpose was to reveal the sin. That's what they needed to be sacrifices, to guardian. They were the guardians for Yisrael, which is the people of Israel. They were the leaders, in other words, of teaching Torah. Besides the sacrifices, they needed to also teach the instruction, also to be judges, and also leads to Mashiach. This sacrifice was literally pointing to Mashiach and his redemption to Israel. That's why you see in Isaiah 53 that Mashiach came to take away these sacrifices, was going to cease. No wonder why chapter 9 verse 27 of Daniel says very clear that in the middle of the week it was going to cease the sacrifices. Exactly what Mashiach came to do. Also, this priesthood, the Levitical priesthood, was going to be the mediation. They were going to mediate, will be the medium from the people to Yahweh. They were going to sacrifice these lambs, these rams, as a medium of redeeming the people. But at the end of the day, was going to be, or were going to be, insufficient, because it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, and that's one of the reasons why Yahweh already knew that this was going to have just a period of time. Now let's jump into the other line of service, which is a higher, pristine service. And that happens to be the kehunat of Melchizedek, the priesthood of Melchizedek. Let's find out. Melchizedek, Abraham knew who was Melchizedek. Once again, Melchizedek happens to be a title. Around that era, the time of Abraham, happens to be Shem. Shem is a title of the order of the priesthood. That priesthood Shem had at that time. We know that Abraham knew who was the priest around that time. But we have to understand something very, very crucial. Melchizedek wasn't just Melchizedek. He had a higher attributes. He had three major attributes. The first one was a king, which is a melech. The second was a prophet, which is a navi. And the third was a priest, which is a Kohen. After, in the time of Yaakov, Israel, this priesthood of Melchizedek was split into three tribes. Yehudah took the melech, took the kingship. Yosef took the prophet. And Levi took the priesthood. You see that? And this is in the Torah itself. Hebrews chapter 7 verse 4. Just think how great this man was. Who? Melchizedek. Even the patriarch Abraham gave him 1/10 of the best of his spoils. We know that Abraham needed to follow the Torah. He gave his 10% to the priest because he knew who was the priest around that time, and it happens to be Melchizedek, Shem. Chapter 7, verse 5 of Hebrews, and certainly of the sons of Levi who hold the kehunat or the priesthood according to the Torah, it is established that they have the mandate to demand tithes from the people, even if their brothers also are descended from the loins of Abraham. Now, let's pause here for a minute and let me explain how indirectly Levi was giving tithes to Melchizedek. And let me show you or paint you a picture. We know that Melchizedek was the priest around that time of Abraham. Abraham gave the tithe to who? To Melchizedek. And who came from the loins of Melchizedek? It was Levi. Levi, he came from the loins of Abraham. So in other words, in the time of Moshe, who was the one giving the tithes to the tribe of Levites? The people. But indirectly, Abraham, which is the descendants, the Levites is descendants of Abraham, indirectly Levites was giving the tithes to who? To Melchizedek. Why? Because Melchizedek happens to be the first one before Levites, and second, he happens to have 3 attributes, higher attributes than Levites. Psalms 110 verse 1, the sons of exaltation of David, Yahweh says to my master, sit at my right hand, I'll make you the enemies a footstool of thy feet. Here we see how David himself knew that it wasn't talking about himself, but rather he was talking about the future Mashiach. 110 verse 4, Yahweh has sworn, I will not resent. You are Kohen, you are priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. This line, this order that we're talking about is what we are always render that Yahweh already knew from the very beginning that lineage, that line, that order was not the order of Levites. That was just for a period of time, just instructing the people of Israel. They just were the tutors that were just guarding just for a moment until the coming of Mashiach. The meaning of the word dibarach, which means condition, order, manner, or cause. This order is what Melchizedek had in his order to be continued, in other words. 110 verse 5 of Psalms. Yahweh at your right hand has destroyed kings in the days of his wrath. We know for a fact that every time we speak about the name of the Creator, also we, in other Torah portions, we have spoken about Mashiach being the Bar, which is the word of Yahweh. He is the spoken word of Yahweh. But he is not Yahweh. He is the word of Yahweh. And that's what John 1:1 says. Now let's continue. Book of Acts 2:32. Yahweh raised up Yahushua, and all of us are witnesses to this. Moreover, he has been exalted to the right hand of Yahweh. He has received from the Father what he has promised, namely the Ruach HaKodesh, the inspiration of Yahweh. And he has poured out this gift that you are seeing and hearing. And the reason why I bring this very verse is because, number one, Yahweh he resurrected or raised up Mashiach. Mashiach is not endowed to himself to do anything unless Yahweh has granted this or commanded this. Yahweh raised the Mashiach from the dead. Not only that, he raised him. The apostles, the Shalachim, were witnesses of these accounts. And number 2, Yahweh also made them sit under his right hand. We see it in the book of Acts chapter 1 where it says very clear, when he ascended to the Father and he seated on his right hand. Now, look at what in chapter 1 verse 13 of Hebrews. Moreover, in which of the Malachim or angels was ever said, sit on my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool of your feet. We know that this verse is literally speaking what we just learned on Psalms 110. Now, let's continue, and let me say this to you, that all this is very, very direct. Hebrews 5:5, therefore neither to the Mashiach exalt himself to be a high priest or Kohen HaGadol, but he was the one who said to him, you are my son, which is Psalm 1:17. You are my son, today I have become your father. And also he says to another place, you are the Kohen high priest forever, to be compared with Melchizedek. These two accounts are very important because we see how Mashiach is taking that title. He's taking the title of Kohen HaGadol. Now let's recap. Melchizedek has 3 attributes, which is the high priest, king, and prophet. Mashiach has the same attributes. He is the priest, a king, and what else? A prophet. 3 things, 3 attributes. He's taking that attribute. He's taking that role. He's taking that priesthood. Why? Because that priesthood is a higher than you can ever think. Okay? So once again, it is very important for us to know that Yahweh has done this, and now we cannot, once again, blot this out or say this never happened, because it's very clear that Mashiach is taking this account, and the Torah that he's bringing about is a higher Torah. How do we know that? Is because, let me explain to you why. In the first century, they only took it very literally. When the Torah speaks about do not murder people, okay, the Torah says do not murder, I will not murder. Mashiach says he exalted the Torah to the max. And he said this, chapter 5, you can read up for yourself. You have heard you should not murder, but I say to you, if anyone is mad at his brother to the point where he's just want to, just say racha, then he said, you already murdered your brother. Why? Because everything is internal. Everything is in here. You might think that you're not killing him literally, but deep inside you already committed murder, because you already want this person to be ceased from the face of the earth. And that's what the Torah is all about. It's internal. It is internal for us. I'm going to place at the very end of this Torah portion a link so you can look at the 2 Torahs that the scriptures talks about, and also Paul. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah. We'll see you next time. If you have not subscribed, please do so you can get the latest production, and I'll see you next time. Shabbat Shalom.
Again.
Toda Rabba. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. There's more content in production. Thank you.